Hey, my name is Marcus and welcome back to this channel. So what I'm doing at the moment is a Learn Python with me. I'm going through a CS50P course, links to the specific video and the playlist down below in the description. I'm going through that. I'm currently on file IO. I've already made a couple of videos prior to this and I'm on the last, I think about 10 minutes of this video. The idea of this is basically so it could be like a bit of a learning environment for anyone that wants to learn Python. What I'd like is for us all to kind of learn it together, and if anyone has any suggestions, any questions, any comments in general, then obviously they could be plonked in the comments section down below. For the other videos that I've already created, there is an iCard around here somewhere, so you can click on that and watch those if you haven't already. And yeah, so this will be the last little section, I think. I don't think this video is going to be overly long because, like I said, there is only about 10 minutes left of this lecture. I'm on number 6, which I think I've already mentioned is file IO. And between my previous video, the last one that I made, and the what I'm doing now, I've created some code just to see if I can get my head around what they actually spoke about, because I was a bit confused. So I rewatched it and did some code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go through that code with you to see what you think of it. It's probably a bit messy and it's probably could be cleaned up quite a bit. So I'd love to hear your thoughts if you do have any thoughts on it. And then we're going to get on with the remainder of the lecture, which is like I say, file IO. Before we do that though, I'm really trying to grow this channel, so if you like this video and you like this kind of content, please consider liking and commenting down below. That will help the channel grow. And then if there's anyone that you think might like this sort of thing, then please feel free to share it with them. I'm not going to stop with Python. I'm planning on going through several languages. The next one is probably going to be HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So I'd love for us all to go on this learning journey together. I'd also really like to thank all of my new subscribers and those that have liked the previous videos. I really do appreciate it, because you doing that is just the best and easiest way to help grow my channel. Anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so here we are with the code that I wrote just to have a bit of a play about and try and get my head around it. So the idea of what I wanted to do was essentially firstly ask how many people the user wanted to add, and then obviously add that, like sort of do a loop so that it adds those. So what if I run this? So Python, I'll show you what it does. Python family dot py. So how many people would you like to add? So if I do 2, and then it asks for the first name, so then I say Woody, and then it asks for the relation, so then I type in friend. And then something else that I did is I made sure that if someone inputs something like a name or relation or whatever, then the first letter is capitalized. So I'll go through that as well in a moment in case you find that useful. So the second, because I've already put in 2, the second name I'm going to put in is Buzz. So I'm going to put that in lowercase, and relation will be brother. Why not? So now what I wanted to do was essentially what you can see on the screen here. So you've just added these 2 names, Woody friend, Buzz brother, and like I said, Buzz, I put in Buzz and brother with capital lowercase b, sorry, but it's capitalized then. And then it says, is this information correct? I've also added some stars just to sort of separate it. Is this information correct? And so I can either type in Y, yes, N, or no. So if I just type in Y for yes, then success, they've been added to your family tree. So if I go over to, if I can click on it, there we go. So name, relation, I've already added these 2 as a test. So Ken and Barbie as brother and sister, and then these are the 2 that I've just added. So I was really happy that I actually managed to get this to work. So looking at the code, I've imported, as you can see, CSV and sys. And then I've defined main. I'm just going to bring this out so we can see that a bit clearer. There we go. So defined main, and I've opened a empty list, and I've created a variable called stars, which is what this part here is. You probably already guessed that. Ask number of people being added. So number of input, number, variable called number, and then the input of how many people would you like to add. Then I've gone through a if statement. So if num is numeric, which means that if it's a number, if you don't know that already, if it's a number, then make it an integer. So that'll be useful in a moment. And then if number is, so hold on, let's go back. So make it a number. If it's not numeric, then print invalid input, please enter a valid integer above 0. And then I want it to run main again. So it basically just loops back around until they put a number in rather than a letter. So we can test that as well in just a moment. Then we've got, so if that's correct, if it's numeric, then we jump back into here. So if number is less than 0, and exactly the same thing. So make sure it's above 0 and then run main again. If number is equal to 0, then it's just a slightly different code. It just says nothing to input and then run main again. So like I said, there's probably a much neater way to do that, but in my head that kind of made sense. It was just an if else statement. Then after that, so if it is numeric, then make it an integer and then move on to the next stage. So I've done ask for name and relation. So for, and he was saying that if you're only using the variable once for this for loop, then a common convention is just to use an underscore. So for underscore in range of num, and that's why it was important to make that an integer. So we've got in range of num. So if I plugged in 2, then it will be in range of 2. And then append the function of get underscore n underscore r. So let's have a look at that. So that's basically saying that append whatever's in that list. So let's go down to where that defines that. And then in there, we're defining this function. And in this function, all I'm doing is creating a variable called name. And I'm asking for the name and titling it. So that's what I said earlier about the capitalizing the first letter. Then asking the relation of that person, and then again titling it, and then return as a dictionary that name. So then that goes back into this bit. So it's saying list append, so it's appending it to the list. And then because I plugged in 2, it will then run that again. So it will jump back down to the get nr function and then do that. And then it's at the end of the number 2. It's finished number 2s. And then, so that will finish. And then we'll move on to the next stage, which is, we can ignore this bit. I was just trying to sort of figure it out in my head. Then print stars. So that is that bit there. Then print an empty line. So that's that bit there. And then you have just added the following names. And then I've created a variable called I. And I've made it 1, equal to 1. So that's for these sections here. So where it says 1 and 2, where it's numbered there. So again, for row in list, it's just a for loop. We've then got print the whatever I is. So the first one obviously will be 1. And then the row name and the relation. So that's why that looks like that. And then because there's 2 in there, oh sorry, haven't finished yet, prints another empty line, then prints stars, then prints another empty line. And then once it gets to the bottom of there, because there's 2 in the dictionary, 2 rows in the dictionary, it will then go back up and do it again, then it's finished, so then we'll go through. So that's why that's printed. Hope this is making sense so far. Then we move on to the confirmation. So that's this section. Is the information correct? So confirmation, create a variable called conf. And input is the information above correct. And again, I've made that lower. So that doesn't matter then whether they capitalize any of the letters. It will just make the whole thing lower. And then I've put, if it's equal to yes, print success. They have been added to your family tree. But we've not actually added it just yet. We've just literally printed that. Else, print, oops, something went wrong, and then creating a variable called retry, and input, would you like to retry that again? So I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And then essentially if they say that they do want to retry, so if they made a mistake and they want to retry it, then it will run main again. And I think I had to put break here because otherwise it just continuously looped. So I had to break the loop after main, which I thought was interesting. So if yes, run main again and break. Else, if retry equals no or n, then sys exit, so exit the program and just say nothing changed. So again, we'll go through that as well in just a moment. And then after that, once we've done all of that, this is where we're doing the bit that he's just taught us about. So we're opening the CSV file, family CSV, in append mode as a file. And then this is the bit that I really wanted to sort of like drill home in my head. So we've created a variable called writer and sys.dict writer. And then we're doing the file. So that's that variable there. And we're adding the field names, name and relation. So we've got name and relation. And then for each row in the list, where are we? Writer dot write row, and then we're plugging in the row. So this bit took me a bit of time actually, if I remember rightly. So row, I've just put the whole variable, the whole row in, and then it worked. But prior to that, I was trying to do row position 0 and then row position 1, and it was just kicking up an error. And then when I just thought, I'll tell you what, let's just put the whole row in and see what happens, it worked perfectly fine. So I don't know. And then that's pretty much it, because then the last little bit is just if the name is equal to main, then run main. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run that code again. And I'm going to say, we want to add 2 more people. So Jessie, and she is my sister. It's actually my sister. And then we've got Slinky, who is my dog, but I'm going to spell it DGO instead. And then click enter. And it says, is this information correct? I'm going to click N for no. Oops, something went wrong. Would you like to retry? Add in some names. So at this point I can say yes if I want, and then that will loop back round. I could do 2 again, and Jessie, sister, name is Slinky, and dog. And now the information is correct, so I can press Y or yes. I'll do yes this time. Success, they've been added to the family tree. And then in family, we've now got, that's interesting. I didn't test that, that's a bug, there we go. So it's actually added those, even though I said that I didn't want to add them. I wanted to redo it. So, it's added it at the bottom though. That's interesting, because we did this one first and then this one. So that's something that I'm going to have a play about with. I won't in this video, because I really want to finish this lecture off. But that'll be somewhere down here, I'd imagine. I'd have to have a look through the code again. But anyway, that's the code that I've written so far. I'm going to keep playing with it and see how we get on with that. But that's pretty much the end of that. Let me know your thoughts of this code. If you think that I've done anything that's stupid that could be much, much neater and tidier, then please do let me know. Because like I say, it's a learning environment for us all. Right, so let's do that then. And then let's close this actually. I'm going to go back to, I think we're on this one now. So let's press play.
Speaking, and not the programmers, the users of those files instead. All right, allow me to propose that we leave CSVs behind, but to note that they're not the only file format you can use in order to read or write data. In fact, they're a popular format, as is just raw text files, .txt files, but you can store data really any way that you want. We've just picked CSVs because it's representative of how you might read and write from a file, and do so in a structured way, where you can somehow have multiple keys, multiple values, all in the same file, without having to resort to what would be otherwise known as a binary file. file. So a binary file is a file that's really just zeros and ones, and they can be laid out in any pattern you might want, particularly if you want to store not textual information, but maybe graphical or audio or video information as well. So it turns out that Python is really good when it comes to having libraries for really everything. And in fact, there's a popular library called Pillow that allows you to navigate image files as well and to perform operations on image files. You can apply filters a la Instagram. You can animate them as well. And so what I thought we'd do is leave behind text files for now and tackle one more demonstration, this time focusing on this particular library and image files instead. So let me propose that we go over here to VS Code and create a program ultimately that creates an animated GIF. These things are everywhere nowadays in the form.
He just said GIF. That's really interesting. I call it GIF. I know this is a touchy subject for some. I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Is it GIF? Is it GIF with a J or GIF with a G sound? I'm definitely GIF because it stands for graphic something or other, graphic interface file, I think, or something like that. So it makes sense for me to be GIF. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Form of memes and animations and stickers and the like, and an animated GIF is really just an image file that has multiple images inside of it. And your computer or your phone shows you those images one after another, sometimes on an endless loop, again and again. And so long as there's enough images, it creates the illusion of animation, because your mind and mine kind of fills in the gaps visually and just assumes that if something is moving, even though you're only seeing one frame per second or some sequence thereof, it looks like an animation. So it's like a simplistic version of a video file. Well, let me propose that we start with maybe a couple of costumes from another popular programming language. And let me go ahead and open up my first costume here, number 1. So suppose here that this is a costume, or really just a static image here, costume1.gif. And it's just a static picture of a cat, no movement at all. Let me go ahead now and open up a second one, costume2.gif, that looks a little bit different. Notice, and I'll go back and forth, this cat's legs are a little bit aligned differently so that this was version 1. And this was version 2. Now, these cats come from a programming language from MIT called Scratch that allows you very graphically to animate all this and more. But we'll use just these two static images, costume 1 and costume 2, to create our own animated GIF that after this you could text to a friend or message them, much like any meme online. Well, let me propose that we create this animated GIF, not by just using some off-the-shelf program that we downloaded, but by writing our own code. Let me go ahead and run code of costumes.py and create our very own program that's going to take as input 2 or even more image files and then generate an animated GIF from them by essentially creating this animated GIF by toggling back and forth endlessly between those two images. Well, how am I going to do this? Well, let's assume that this will be a program called costumes.py that expects 2 command line arguments, the names of the files, the individual costumes that we want to animate back and forth. So to do that, I'm going to import sys so that we ultimately have access to sys.argv. I'm then, from this Pillow library, going to import support for images specifically. So from PIL, import image, capital I, as per the library's documentation. Now I'm going to give myself an empty list called images, just so I have a list in which to store 1 or 2 or more of these images. And now let me do this. For each argument in sys.argv, I'm going to go ahead and create a new image variable, set it equal to this image dot open function passing in arg. Now, what is this doing? I'm proposing that eventually I want to be able to run Python of costumes.py, and then as command line arguments specify costume1.gif space costume2.gif. So I want to take in those file names from the command line as my arguments. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm iterating over sys.argv, all of the words in my command line arguments. I'm creating a variable called image, and I'm passing to this function image.open from the Pillow library that specific argument. And that library is essentially going to open that image in a way that gives me a lot of functionality for manipulating it, like animating. Now I'm going to go ahead and append to my images list that particular image. And that's it. So this loop's purpose in life is just to iterate over the command line arguments and open those images using this library. The last line is pretty straightforward. I'm going to say this. I'm going to grab the first of those images, which is going to be in my list at location 0, and I'm going to save it to disk. That is, I'm going to save this file. Now, in the past, when we use CSVs or text files, I had to do the file opening. I had to do the file writing, maybe even the closing. I don't need to do that with this library. The Pillow library takes care of the opening, the closing, and the saving for me by just calling save. I'm going to call this save function, and just to leave space, because I have a number of arguments to pass, I'm going to move to another line so it fits. I'm going to pass in the name of the file that I want to create, costume.gif. That will be the name of my animated GIF. I'm going to tell this library to save all of the frames that I pass to it. So the first costume, the second costume, and even more if I gave them. I'm going to then append to this first image, the image is 0, the following images equals this list of images. And this is a bit clever, but I'm going to do this. I want to append the next image there, images 1. And now I want to specify a duration of 200 milliseconds for each of these frames, and I want this to loop forever. And if you specify loop equals 0, that is time 0, it means it's just not going to loop a finite number of times, but an infinite number of times instead. And I need to do one other thing. Recall that sys.argv contains not just the words I typed after my program's name, but what else does sys.argv contain? If you think back to our discussion of command line arguments. What?
Sys.argv also contains the file name at position 0. Yeah, I think that's right. So the file name is at position 0. So then the actual argument itself that you're passing through will be at position 1 or from position 1.
Else is in sys.argv besides the words I'm about to type, like costume1.gif and costume2.
Yeah, so we'll actually get in the original name of the program we want to run, the costumes.py.
Indeed, we'll get the original name of the program, costumes.py in this case, which is not a GIF, obviously. So remember that using slices in Python, we can do this. If sys.argv is a list.
Slices, sorry, I know I'm pausing, but I want to try and remember before he says stuff. So sys.argv, slices, we want to do. If we want to go from position 1, it's in square brackets, 1 colon, end square brackets, because then that's starting from 1 and it's going all the way to the end.
And we want to get a slice of that list. Everything after the first element, we can do 1 colon, which says start at location 1, not 0, and take a slice all the way to the end. So give me everything except the first thing in that list, which, to Mackenzie's point, is the name of the program. Now, if I haven't made any mistakes, let's see what happens. I'm going to run Python of costumes.py, and now I'm going to specify the 2 images that I want to animate. So costume1.gif and costume2.gif. What is the code now going to do? Well, to recap, we're using the sys library to access those command line arguments. We're using the Pillow library to treat those files as images, and with all the functionality that comes with that library. I'm using this images list just to accumulate all of these images one at a time from the command line. And in lines 7 through 9, I'm just using a loop to iterate over all of them and just add them to this list after opening them with the library. And the last step, which is really just one line of code broken onto 3 so that it all fits, I'm going to save the first image, but I'm asking the library to append this other image to it as well. Not bracket 0, but bracket 1. And if I had more, I could express those as well. I want to save all of these files together. I want to pause 200 milliseconds, a fifth of a second, in between each frame. And I want it to loop infinitely many times. So now, if I cross my fingers as always, hit Enter, nothing bad happened, and that's almost always a good thing. Let me now run code of costumes.gif to open up in VS Code the final image. And what I think I should see is a very happy cat. And indeed. So now we've seen not only that we can read and write files, be it textually, we can read and now write files that are binary, 0s and 1s. We've just scratched the surface. This is using the library called Pillow. But ultimately, this is going to give us the ability to read and write files however we want. So we've now seen that via file I/O we can manipulate not just textual files, be it TXT files or CSVs, but even binary files as well. In this case, they happen to be images, but if we dived in deeper, we could explore audio and video and so much more, all by way of these simple primitives, this ability somehow to read and write files.
That is really cool. Up to this point in Python, all we've been doing is text-based stuff in the command or the CLI, command line interface. That's all we've been doing. So to do this is going to be really fun. I'm going to see if I can find some images and see if I can do that. He used 2 GIFs or GIFs, depending on who you are and how you say it. I assume you can use other files as well. So I'm going to try that as well as probably JPEGs and PNGs and see if I can create a couple of GIFs. The only thing I don't really understand is that bit there where he says, so costumes GIF, I understand that's the name of the file that we're creating. And then save all true, that makes sense. Append images equals images brackets 1. I don't understand why it's 1, so I'm going to have to look through the documentation to find out why. If you know why, please feel free to, again, pop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and, again, share with others. That's what this is all about, after all. But yeah, that's pretty much this video done now. He's already said goodbye, so that's it. That's this lecture done. So there we have it. That's the end of lecture 6 file IO. I need to go away and have a bit of a play about with the GIF or GIF making thing, because that looks really cool and I really want to have a play about with that and see what I can do to make sure I understand that. Next up is, because I've mentioned in a previous video that this is a certified course, so I'm going to be doing some of the problem sets that they give you. So I don't know when the next video is going to be, but I need to do that first. I'm not going to record that just because of plagiarism and things like that. And also, they usually take me a bit of time to figure out how to do stuff. So I won't be recording that. But when you see me next, I imagine it would probably be when we're on the lecture 7, which I'm not entirely sure what that is. Let's have a quick look. Regular expressions. And then we're almost done. I think it's just a couple more videos after that. So very excited to finish this course, and hopefully I can finish it before Christmas. On that note, it is coming up to Christmas, so if you're feeling in a festive spirit, then please, like I said at the beginning of the video, feel free to like, comment and share this video, because that will really help my channel to grow. I also want to thank everyone for watching, especially if you've watched up to this point. You're a real trooper watching all this video, so thank you so much, and thanks again to my new subscribers, and thanks for everyone for liking the video. Really appreciate it. Right, until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.